Now we are going to start our chapter 80, that is the control of extracellular fluid osmolarity and the sodium concentration. So actually why we are studying this both together, because the extracellular fluid is nothing but it has mainly the sodium mainly it has the sodium, whereas the intracellular fluid it mainly has the potassium, right? So that's why we are comparing the osmolarity of this extracellular fluid with the sodium concentration. So mainly this process is regulated by our osmoreceptor antidiuretic hormone system, which is present in our hypothalamus. So that controls this both extracellular fluid osmolarity and sodium concentration. And the second process is the thirst mechanism. So the osmoreceptor ADH system and the thirst mechanism. So actually for example, when you are traveling to any desert or any water deficit, or because of any sunstroke, whenever there is dehydration in our body, then and in a cases like where there is lot of sodium in our body, so in this both conditions, the osmoreceptors which are present in our hypothalamus, they mainly get near to the supraoptic nucleus. They get mainly shrink. Whenever they shrink, they release the signals to the posterior pituitary. So from the posterior pituitary, like especially in the posterior pituitary, 5/6 of the supraoptic nucleus is activated and 1/6 of the paraventricular nucleus is activated. So because of this main two nucleus which are activating in our hypothalamus, they release the signals to the posterior pituitary by calcium entry. This releases the ADH. ADH form vesicles at the ends of this posterior pituitary, and by entry of calcium they release this ADH vesicles into the blood, and by means of blood this is carried into the kidney. So they enter the kidney, and there they mainly what they do is they increase the water reabsorption from the late DCT, it is the late part of distal cannulated tubule, and also from the collecting ducts. So actually you can see this process. So at the beginning you can see there is low water in our body. So by all this process, finally by release of ADH, you can see in the late part of DCT and in the collecting duct there is increase in water reabsorption. So like this, now the blood volume increases, the blood pressure increases, and to all over the body again the blood flow will be normal. So finally this will lead to concentration urine, of course, because as the water is now reabsorbed. So when you are in desert or when you are in dehydrated phase, then you can see that your urine will be so concentrated, and the sodium is excreted now, because in the beginning you can see we have discussed that there is lot of sodium in our body. Of course, whenever water is decreased, in our extracellular fluid we have water, sodium, mainly we have sodium, we have chlorine, we have different other ions, right? So main component is sodium in our extracellular fluid. So whenever this water is decreased, of course sodium will increase, because it will become concentrated as a solvent is decreased now. So the solute will get concentration. So as the sodium is increased now, by this ADH mechanism, you can see we are only reabsorbing water, but we are releasing the sodium out into the urine. So by this the sodium is lost, so that now sodium is maintained, and even the water reabsorption, so water is again coming back to our body. So this is how the mechanism goes on. So we also have anterior ventral region of third ventricle. This is a region which is called AV3V. So actually this AV3V region, upper to it has a subfornical organ, and below it has the organum vasculosum. So this organum vasculosum of lamina terminalis. Actually why we are talking about these two regions is, these two regions are not having the blood-brain barrier in our brain. In our brain we have blood-brain barrier, so charged particles, very big molecules, all those can't enter that barrier. But as these regions are out of blood-brain barrier, they are easily able to sense this, any changes in extracellular fluid, any changes in sodium concentration, so that they can regulate these mechanisms, as they are not having any blood-brain barrier. So in between them there is a median preoptic nucleus which is present in between them. So this all together form this AV3V, that is antroventral region of the third ventricle. They contain mainly this all parts. So these are all also useful for the regulation of this sodium and water concentrations. So mainly this median preoptic nucleus have the connection to the supraoptic nuclei and also to the blood pressure centers in the medulla. So because of this connection, they are also having an intimate relation to regulate this both water concentration, this sodium concentrations. And so any lesions to this AV3V, so for example you may think that if there are any deficits or any lesions in this AV3V, it will lead to deficits in control of ADH and thirst and sodium appetite and also blood pressure. So you can see this is having very key role in our control of antidiuretic hormone, control of thirst center, control of sodium appetite means how much sodium we should take, the desire for sodium, and the blood pressure also. So you can say like almost all the mechanisms, important mechanisms are controlled by the AV3B. So if any deficit, any problem, any abnormality here, it may also lead to abnormality in all the systems. So whenever there is increase in extracellular fluid osmolarity, then osmolarity is nothing but increase in concentration of solutes, very low water is there, then this will lead to increase in thirst by activation of osmoreceptors, of course. So osmoreceptors will activated and they will activate the thirst system. So arterial baroreceptor reflexes and cardiopulmonary reflexes can also control the ADH release, because as the blood pressure is low or blood volume is low, that also may activate our ADH. And whenever there is low blood pressure and low blood volume, ADH will increase. This will lead to increase in absorption of water from collecting duct. So they restore the blood pressure and again volume comes back to normal. So whenever there is a decrease in blood volume or increase in extracellular fluid osmolality, you can see these are the two major stimulatory effects of the ADH. So whenever the ADH is stimulated, you should always remember these two factors. That is, whenever there is low blood pressure or whenever there is higher osmolarity. Higher osmolarity means higher sodium in the blood, higher sodium in our extracellular fluid and low water. So these two are the main reasons for activation of stimulation of ADH. So actually this decrease in blood volume is a more powerful, more potent stimulator when compared with this increase in extracellular osmolarity, because some local factors or they also try to regulate it, but decrease in blood volume is more serious condition also, because if it may lead to shock because whole blood volume is decreased. So to prevent this, it will immediately stimulate the ADH. So there are also other stimulators for ADH like nausea and vomiting like feeling, and drugs like nicotine, morphine, they all stimulate the ADH, whereas drugs like alcohol, it inhibits the ADH. So that is the reason why if you drink more alcohol, the people who drink alcohol, they have the diuresis, because it inhibits the ADH. If it inhibits the ADH means reabsorption of water is decreased, so it will lead to more diluted urine. So fluid intake is regulated mainly by thirst mechanism, right? And it is also associated with osmoreceptor of the ADH. So this both together control mainly the extracellular fluid and the sodium concentration. So the factors which are stimulating the ADH are increasing the thirst, of course, because more remember that the factors which are stimulating ADH, like we have seen here, like decrease in blood volume, increase in extracellular fluid osmolality, nausea, all these drugs, they also lead to increase in thirst, because the main motto here is to finally increase the blood volume and increase the blood pressure whenever there is low fluid in our body. So this is called as conscious drive for water, because thirst is a conscious drive for water, because we are only ourselves saying that we want water so that inside our blood volume is low, or the extracellular fluid osmolarity is very high, like that. Anterolaterally in the preoptic nucleus, so in the preoptic nucleus anterolaterally we have a thirst center which is mainly responding to the hypertonic salt injection. So whenever if you give hypertonic salt injection, means very high amount of salt, then it will lead to increase in water intake. Of course, thirst center is activated means it will lead to increase in water intake. Increase in osmolarity of cerebrospinal fluid in the third ventricle will also lead to increase in drinking, that is, it also activates the thirst center. Mainly organum vasculosum of lamina terminalis is involved. So you can see all these regions, all this these parts which are present in AV3B, like subfornical organ, organum vasculosum of lamina terminalis, median preoptic nucleus. So all these are mainly involved in control of this regulation of this extracellular fluid osmolarity. At the same time, even the sodium concentration, thirst center we are discussed here. So ADH, thirst, sodium appetite, blood pressure, all are regulated by this AV3B. So this is a very important center. This regulates all these processes. Next, increase in ECF osmolarity lead to intracellular dehydration, because you can see osmolarity means more sodium is increased or more solutes are increased, whereas the water content is decreased, the solvent is decreased. So this will lead to intracellular dehydration, which in turn stimulates the thirst center. So because of this, it will lead to further decrease in extracellular fluid volume and arterial pressure. Even decrease in extracellular fluid volume and decrease arterial pressure will also activate this thirst center. So by that it will lead to increase in water or increase in blood volume. So angiotensin 2 will also act on the subfornical organ and also on organum vasculosum, which is actually situated outside the blood-brain barrier, so that the thirst center is activated, so that this will lead to restoring the blood volume and at the same time blood pressure. So sometimes mouth, if you feel your mouth is dry and the mucous membrane of the esophagus is dry, this will also lead to increase in thirst sensation. Actually this is a main reason which stops you drinking the water after immediately you drink the water. Means it like the desire to drink the water will be decreased by this whenever the mouth becomes again normal. So these are also the stimulatory effects for thirst. And GI system and pharyngeal stimuli also increase the thirst sensation, but these are short-lived. The desire to drink completely is satisfied only when increase in plasma or osmolarity or blood volume return to normal. So this mouth hydration and the mucous membrane of the esophagus, this GI pharyngeal stimuli, these are all temporary, but they just give a feeling for us that we have to drink water and it's okay. But the main desire to stop drinking of water takes place only after the plasma osmolarity again comes back to normal and the blood volume again comes back to normal. The thirst and ADH system work in parallel. No regulation is done by both. Thirst and ADH system work in parallel, remember, because there you can see all are like near to this. Almost everyone is there in AV3V center. And sodium regulation is done by both angiotensin 2 and aldosterone, of course, because aldosterone lead to sodium and water retention. And how angiotensin regulates sodium is, of course, angiotensin 2 itself also activates the aldosterone. So all these mechanisms are interrelated, so that the sodium regulation is done by them. And secrete the sodium if there is higher sodium, that is into the urine, right, and reabsorb it if there is low sodium. And they also increase the extracellular fluid volume and the sodium also, of course. So if sodium intake is very much high, if a person is eating lot of sodium rich content, then it is compensated by ADH, so that the thirst system will activate in turn, and this will lead to more water intake and dilute the extracellular fluid to normal. So if there is lot of salt also, again it will activate the thirst center. So because of this, again the extracellular fluid will get diluted, so that it will prevent the dehydration. And in the case of primary aldosteronism, where actually the production of aldosterone is very high, whenever there is lot of aldosterone means lot of sodium is reabsorbed. So as lot of sodium is reabsorbed means in this people there will be low sodium and also low water, because sodium and water are reabsorbed a lot. So plasma sodium is very high, only less than normal. Of course here also plasma sodium is increasing, but not that much than normal, only some extent it is increasing. So it's like not playing that much key role. Both together can control it. So complete loss of aldosterone secretion, like adrenalectomy or Addison's disease. So for example, in adrenalectomy, if you remove the adrenal gland, then there is complete loss of aldosterone secretion. So there is loss of sodium by kidneys. Of course, if aldosterone is not there, the sodium will be always lost from the kidneys. Decrease in sodium concentration in plasma will lead to decrease in blood volume and pressure, because always water follows sodium. So if the sodium is low, then the blood volume also decreases. So this will lead to increase in thirst by cardiovascular reflexes, and this will lead to dilution of plasma sodium concentration, because in this people they're always not having aldosterone, so always their sodium is lost in urine. So because of this they'll feel always thirsty. So because of this thirst, always their you can see plasma sodium concentration is in diluted form. And next, let us see the salt appetite mechanism. So why we feel to eat salt, what is this? Let us see. So actually sodium increase in sodium intake may lead to cardiovascular diseases and hypertension. Normally per day we should take only 10 to 20 milliequivalents per day, but like we are eating a lot of salt. In every dish we put lot of salt, right? So this higher salt intake may lead to cardiovascular diseases and hypertension. So decrease in sodium in and we have some people like this sodium appetite mechanism is this craving for sodium is high in people, especially who have sodium deficiencies, or the people who have like this Addison's disease. In Addison's disease sodium is low because they have low aldosterone. So because of low aldosterone, the sodium is always lost in urine, so they feel like they want more sodium. So in this kind of people, they love to eat more sodium. For these people it's okay to eat more sodium, but in normal people only 10 to 20 milliequivalents per day of sodium is only recommended. And this AV3V region is also associated with salt appetite. So that's why you can see this AV3V region, it's like a major region here in this chapter. You can see almost everything is associated with it. The thirst center is associated with it, and the ADS system is associated with it, and the sodium control mechanism is associated with it, and also even the salt appetite is also associated with it. So almost all mechanisms of regulation of extracellular fluid, sodium concentration is mainly regulated by this AV3V region of our brain, which is mainly the important point here. The key point is it is not having blood-brain barrier. As it is not having blood-brain barrier, it can easily sense the changes in our extracellular fluid so that it can regulate according to the need. So this is also one more important. Whenever what stimulates the ADH is whenever the extracellular fluid osmolarity is very high and whenever the blood volume is very low, this mainly stimulates the ADH. And among this also the blood volume, the low blood volume is the key factor which is more powerful than the increase in extracellular fluid osmolarity. So by this we complete this control of extracellular fluid osmolarity and sodium concentration.